Good morning and welcome. This is Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwaka Mimo. NASA, the new opposition super alliance, takes one step closer to presenting an almost unified opposition front to contest the August presidential election today. Leaders representing the various constituent parties have agreed on a power-sharing formula which they will sign this morning. So what difference will this make to the electoral contest? Our guests are Peter Kaluma, the ODM Member of Parliament for Homa Bay. ODM is, of course, one of the NASA affiliate parties. A nominated MP, Johnson Sakaja, who describes himself as Nairobi's next governor. He, of course, is affiliated with Jubilee after the dissolution of his PNA party. As always, we have panelists Mutegi Njau and Charles Odhiambo with us. So good morning, gentlemen, and welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaluma, I'll start with you because, of course, you've had a late night, going over various bits and bobs, the technicalities, making sure every detail is correct. What exactly has been agreed?
Yes, the agreements will be spelled to the nation in our meeting today. I think we are having a morning meeting, somewhere. Then we are proceeding to Jivanji Garden.
Somewhere?
Yes, we straight from here. I'm going for some, top-level meeting,
so it's a secret
leadership meeting.
You don't want any?
Yes, and that is why we are inviting. Yeah, we are inviting, the media to Jivanji Garden.
Okay.
As we invite other Kenyans. So everything is going to be exposed there.
This is new.
But let me.
Why Jivanji?
We've
never handled political things.
Jivanji has been a very good meeting point for very serious things.
It is where TNA and URP came together.
URP and
TNA. Is it like where winning teams come together? Is that what? Are you borrowing from them?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. We've met in Jivanji. There is a bungalow Wananchi there permanently. There. But really, we never choose, the venues of meetings based deeply on, the history of other organizations. We choose them for the conveniences of the time. What we are looking at in terms of, NASA is how we can create this one thing we've been searching for from independence, called a nation. I've always argued here before that we are a country of sub-nations. The Luo sub-nation, the Kikuyu sub-nation, the Loya sub-nation, and others.
And how does NASA see that?
And our thinking is that the problem with this country is that, we have allowed so few, more so in a presidential system that we are today, to, lord it over the majority. So we want as many, sheds and as many corners of the country, not just represented, but duly represented and having a voice at the top leadership of this country.
How is that different from any of the other opposition coalitions that we've seen, or any coalition for that matter?
Yeah, NASA would be, similar to the arrangement you saw in NAC in 2002. So to that extent, I agree with you. There would be similarity in terms of, the arrangement that informed the formation of some oppositions coming together to win power. We are saying it is not in the situation we have in our politics in Kenya today possible to imagine, you can, come up as a single individual and run it. You are better off as a coalition of people representing the blocks and all sections of the country.
So tell us, what details do you have of the deal that's being signed? Can you tell us?
I know the details,
okay,
but I'm not allowed to disclose them now.
Okay.
There is a proposal.
Yes.
There is a proposal.
There we go.
There is a proposal that you create a seat for the chief minister, who will later becomes the prime minister. We have read that in the press.
Okay. I'll ask Charles, because I know that you've read the papers. We all have. Just give us an overview of what you understand the power sharing deal to be.
Basically, what they're looking at is a winner. I mean, everybody gets something situation where, of course, there is going to be the presidency, that's the president and the deputy president, but they strategically identify positions that they intend to later on make some changes in the constitution to give glaring provisions for, like what Mr. Mutegi is saying, the chief minister's position, which they later on intend to transform into a prime minister's position with a slight tweak on the constitution.
And isn't part of what's new the fact that this will be some sort of internal electoral contest, so that the runners-up all have some sort of position.
Precisely, and I think that they have even come up, I think their technical team has come up with strategies on how to identify the flag bearer, who comes second, who comes third, and who comes fourth. So probably they're going to use the same scenario in identifying who takes which position. Because there was word out there, unconfirmed though, that they're looking at things like a level of one's diplomacy, international relationships, how widely spread is your the political party that you lead is in the country, and such like things.
And none of this you can comment on until we come to Mutegi's question.
That's what I was asking. Whether that position of chief minister is there.
Yes, in fact, let me make it simple. I don't know whether the position of chief minister is there. That is proposed, I saw in the Standard newspaper, to be transposed to the position of prime minister. But let me say, it would be a very good thing if we had more positions at the top. In fact, the biggest problem in this country, if I speak detached a bit from politics, is that Kenyans tend to believe that there are very few, mouths in the nation's feeding trough. Okay, we are in a presidential system where the winner takes all, and then you are thinking of the president and the deputy, and then you see it in terms of even the politics of Jubilee now. Until you see the deputy somewhere, people think they're not there. So to me, in terms of the ideal of inclusivity, the more the Kenyan regions and blocks feel represented at the top, the better for us. It's a proposal that if really there, I would personally support. I've supported it here before, would work.
Okay.
But the constitution does.
And let me clarify to Mutegi. You see, there is a thinking that we cannot have the position of prime minister even as we speak. I don't know where that thinking is coming from. Remember, under the constitution, the president has been empowered to create ministries and name them as a wills and designate them as a wills. Nobody says you can, President Uhuru Kenyatta cannot decide to call, Honorable Sakaja the Prime Minister.
After all, Prime just means
the Prime is just functional. It just delineates the functions and you proceed.
Okay, so let's give Honorable Sakaja a chance to respond now, because quite a bit has been said.
A lot has been said, and that is the internal party affairs. We wish them well, in what they're trying to do. I think unity is a good thing, and it's interesting to hear my brother Kaluma, trying to be poetic about this thing that they're trying to do, making it look like it is new. There's nothing new in what they're trying to do. It is almost like someone on a treadmill running but moving nowhere, or a stationary bike. First of all, it is not new in the sense that the Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Etangula, Honorable Mudavadi, and Honorable Kalonzo have together been at the same or rather high levels of government before, for 5 years. Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Vice President, Foreign Minister. So you expect nothing new from that formation as they're trying to bring it out. It is not like what is trying to describe, NAC. NAC was, the whole country was moving together. There was a mass exodus from Kano. Raila Odinga left, Saitoti left, Kalonzo Musyoka left, and they came together and in a short time were able to marshal up support. The mass exodus we're seeing now really is mass exodus from court to Jubilee. We have received more than 45 of your members who you have tried to do whip right, left and center, but they're still in parliament.
But you've lost people to Wiper and various others.
Very few. I think less than 7 actually, if you count. The mass exodus is only that way. Osmosis moves from an area of low concentration to high concentration. And the fact that now you're trying even to trivialize a position as like Prime Minister. Prime Minister, yes, you can name any ministry, whatever it is, but it's more than just a name. It's a constitutional position with powers. When Raila Odinga was given a position, there had to be amendments into our law. We had to have a National Accord and Reconciliation Act to provide a position with serious powers, so that it was almost as if there was power sharing with, actually there was power sharing with President Mwai Kibaki. So what we're seeing is them trying to, what they're calling inclusivity, is looking for positions for what is not new. It is just code plus Musalia Mudavadi. There's nothing else. It is just the same code that they've had, the same code that we were able to defeat in the last election. And when you try to create false momentum, you'll never get it. Because if you look at all the votes they are talking about, Musalia Mudavadi ran against us in the last election, Raila Odinga together with Kalonzo and Otangula. There is nothing new they've added. In fact, the other candidates who ran, Peter Kenneth and Martha, have joined us. if you add everything they had together, it is still far below what we got.
You've got into the numbers argument.
Yeah, based on NAC, the momentum they're trying to say, if we come together, we'll deny Jubilee 50%. But that is not true. Because no matter how you arrange these three items, if you put one on top of the other or behind, there are still three. There's nothing you've added. So, the fallacy that we see sometimes with my colleagues, and I know it is normally not wise to interrupt your opponent when they're making mistakes, is that they measure politics out of emotion, they measure it out of volume, or out of numbers in a rally, but at the end of the day, votes are counted one by one. So we wish you the best in that, in the treadmill or in the stationary bike, but I don't think it'll amount to much. And finally, what we've seen over the past few months, and even the past few years, is that supporters of CORD have become fatigued because they have not seen what an alternative government to Jubilee would do. We've not seen you saying, okay, this is your budget, this is what we'd have proposed. We've not seen you saying, we don't agree with your approach to security, this is what we'd have done. Even till today, if you ask anybody what is the agenda of NASA or of CORD, it is about power sharing. It is about dishing out positions. There is no clear agenda to the Kenyans. Well, in Jubilee, we're telling Kenyans what we have done over the past few years and what we hope to do, what the challenges have been. We cannot say it has been 100% smooth, and how we intend to overcome those challenges moving forward. So ultimately, Kenyans will make a choice. Even if you paint an old house or with a new coat of paint, it's still the same CORD plus.
Johnson is like saying the more things change, the more they remain the same.
They're the same, and you can see what has happened to their.
Is that the same as
what we can see to their supporters? They have been demoralized. If you look at voter registration, the county that has been the lowest in terms of its targets is a county of one of the principals who wants to be the flag bearer. Musalia Mudavadi in Vihiga was 26%, far below even Wajir and Mandera. Because they keep shooting themselves on the foot. You go and tell your people that this election has already been stolen. Who will come out to vote in Homa Bay? Who will come out to register? I know your county you've tried well, but you keep tripping yourselves up, as opposition. And if you look at the numbers, I think it's as clear as day.
There's a glint in your eye.
When I look at the stress in Sakaja's face, I am now more convinced that the president should be packing to go home. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. And I can tell you, you need to look at those numbers, as keenly as you should. I was saying somewhere before that if I were an advisor to the president, I would tell him to go back to the drawing board. We can talk about, the coming together of leaders do not matter. But there is a positive, momentum and euphoria it creates in a people to come out to vote. And you cannot take it lightly. Remember in Western Kenya, Musalia Mudavadi was, stood alone, I think under UDF, if I can remember. All those MPs were given to the Jubilee administration, okay, and when they were given to the Jubilee administration, Musalia, I think, imagined that this Jubilee would be as inclusive as we are proposing in NASA. It's outside there. The situation we have in Western Kenya, for instance, today, is that all those Jubilee-leaning MPs are among the 70% the papers of the opinion polls were indicating yesterday are going home. And they have to come back to NASA as fast as possible. I can tell you, Sakaja, and I know you know it. So in terms of political strategy, your first, decision or strategy should be to win numbers in parliament. I can tell you. Because if you do not control parliament, you cannot run as an effective executive in Kenya today.
Hence the
with the budgeting, obligation imposed on parliament, not the executive currently. You know what it means. I've said here before that if CORD had the numbers in parliament, we would not be even begging, the current president to do things. He would have just resigned himself because he just denied budget. And he cannot execute anything. So I want to say that if you look at the geo map of the country currently, I don't know why Sakaja would be bold to imagine they still have, what they were calling tyranny of numbers. First, you have lost members of parliament. And I can tell you, Western is going to be a mop-up. Narok and Kajiado is going to be a mop-up. You've seen the papers today.
What makes you say that?
I've been there. I mean, I've been to Kandui, I've been in Shinali's constituency, I've been to Kakamega. I can tell you, somebody like your deputy whip is homebound. I don't want to name them here.
You've already named
Coast province. There is a very huge issue, and you know what you need to do if you are to get the votes there. The people who you believe you've picked, they have not tagged along with the people, and then the challenges you have there. And we are not bothered about how many times you go there. We've said it before. It is locked. But when it comes up to the larger politics, and I think this one we need to look at very seriously. We must begin as a country to question what are the issues that will dictate the manner in which the people of Kenya are going to vote. I hate it, Udwak, when people sit together and imagine if people registered in Homa Bay, they are ODM people simply because Homa Bay is largely Luos. That is the thinking we don't want. We must reach a state of maturity in our democracy as a people, where we say what are these issues that will make the Kenyan people vote.
But Mr. Kaluma, I would put it to you though that even though you say that your NASA is trying to campaign on issues, the very structure, the very fact that you have this power sharing deal, that you have principals who represent different communities belies that. You're going after tribal votes. You're practicing tribal politics.
It's not just tribal votes that we are going for.
So you concede that?
Let me tell you, we are not going for tribal votes. What we are saying is that there are some values we believe in, and those values are our values of governance in the
But we haven't heard them. Your first order of business has been a power sharing deal.
It's not about power sharing. This power sharing, you're the one picking it. And
so what are you signing this morning?
Udwak, I like you because you are pushing me to disclose what is in the deal, which I've gotten out of. It is good, it is investigative, it is good in terms of interrogation. I'm saying let us see what we are dealing with there. So
let me take it from you before you move on, that you're not signing a power sharing deal this morning. Is that what you're trying to say?
There will be documentation to firm up NASA as a coalition.
Right.
And NASA is going to be a political formation. Political formation is not about just power, but governance of a people.
So what
there is a huge
will
array.
you be signing on this morning?
We've said before, and I don't want to go into the depth of them. I know you are really interrogating. But we've said before, we want one Kenya where everybody feels belongingness. You get what I mean? And I'm saying, whether or not, the people of Kenya believe Jubilee, gives that, I think it's a settled issue. People are feeling very excluded by Jubilee government, and this is what Sakaja is not telling you. Sakaja, let me tell you, when the president goes somewhere to Nyeri, and it is splashed on the media, in the newspapers, that a whole 145 billion is left there in a trip of 2 days. And then you go to Western Kenya, you politic for a whole day and leave 1 billion, you say to revive, pan paper. Kenyans are not fools. We are seeing the balances. And we are saying we must begin having formations that will bring equity to this nation and bring a sense of inclusivity. It is lacking.
I think you can see the struggle that Mheshimiwa is going through to try and spell out that agenda. It is purely power sharing. There's nothing new in that.
No, I'm not struggling.
And inclusivity. I'm not struggling. Inclusivity is not just bringing together 4 individuals, 2 from the same community and 2 from 2 different communities. Inclusivity is about how you create equality of opportunities and how you show the movement towards that. I think this notion and the propaganda that you go to Central and leave this number of billions, while in Western and Nyanza you leave peanuts, is not true. If you look, first of all, Parliament appropriates the budget. I think you sit in the budget committee, or your colleagues in the budget committee, including your own party chairman, who participate in allocation of resources.
With the
allocation of resources, the budget committee has rarely had to vote on any issue. They're mostly unanimous. And you remember we had an issue at some point, we wanted to remove all of them. Because they have agreed, and there's development going to every part of this country. The 600,000 extra women going for maternity is across the country. In 2013, it was only 600,000, now it's 1.2 million. There are more than 23,000 schools, up from 8,000 in 2013, that have electricity, even in your own constituency. Development is spread out everywhere. And on top of that, devolution, the resources are coming to your county. So you cannot blame the national government for what your governor is not doing or is doing. And I think that old talk that has been going on for many years, needs to come to an end. That is a tribal alliance saying how will we bank on the votes of certain communities. I agree with you on one point, that actually as a country, we need to move from that kind of thinking And when you talk about the votes we expect to get, I've seen the newspaper saying Jubilee is probably getting 7.4 million, while CORD has 7 million, putting us ahead at 400,000. I know we're ahead. But the methodology of
how do you know? How do you know?
The same way,
just for
you see the same way he says that some of my MPs are not coming. And the same way I know he's talking about Western. I'm from there.
No, this is the opinion
so I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And
I'm actually asking. Sorry, I'm asking how you know, because flashback, when there was this issue about IEBC and all the rest, you came out and appeared like you were talking for IEBC. And now, because IEBC is going to conduct an election, and you're saying, I know we are ahead. People are asking, what do you know?
First of all, they've released the numbers. And the numbers that they've released, I think in the public domain, you also have access to them. And you can look at it in two ways. Number one, and I'm a mathematician, maths, you first deal with assumptions. You assume that the first assumption you can make, is that where the areas that were your strongholds in the last election remain your strongholds. And the strongholds not because of tribe, but because of the votes you got. And if you apply that, and that's what the newspaper has done, you get 7.4 million for Jubilee and 7 million for CORD. And then there are swing counties. Now, the second thing you do, because CORD always tries to copy what we've done 5 years later. We were in Jivanji 5 years ago, now is when they're going there. We're talking about digital systems 5 years ago, now is when they're going there. There's a new demographic that we are appealing to. It is not necessarily an ethnic demographic. There's a generation that is not just looking at leaders based on where they're from, based on where they were born. And we are banking on even that generation of young people who are tired with this poison of past politics. They're tired of the divisive and violent talk that is coming from CORD. When you're saying Mtaona Chamchamakuni, when you're saying that we will ban this country, and all those wild statements that we hear coming, the vitriol that's coming from your leaders, that itself is taking votes away from yourself. So when you say even Homa Bay is not guaranteed to be ODM, I concur with you. Now on that other issue you've mentioned, when we said that we thought Okwa Kenya signatures are fake, I think it was a very clear statement that IEBC had been saying over 6 months that they're verifying signatures for the referendum, and they were going to make an announcement. So the question we asked is, how are you verifying? Does IEBC have Mutegi's signature? Do they have your signature? And we asked the IEBC to publish in the newspapers the names of those purported to have signed. You might have found your name there and you didn't sign. And a day later, they said, actually, some of them we saw squirrels drawn, we saw frogs, cows, and so it's that politics of deception that we're trying to move away from. Inclusivity is good. I appreciate it. That's why I said we wish you well. But there's no new magic you've done. If there's a chunk of Jubilee support that has come to your party, then we'd say, okay, here there's a problem. And like David Rudisha does, many times when you're running, you stop racing against your opponents, you start racing against time. And as we're looking at the clock now, 50%. How do we achieve 50%? How do we encourage more Kenyans? Inclusivity that we've done in Jubilee is not just 4 big leaders coming. It is 14 political parties being able to come together, saying that from Turkana to Mombasa, from Wajir to Homa Bay, that we can actually have people who saying they believe in this party for certain reasons. That's why we say to Kopamoja. In your county, we're saying Wankanyakla. In your county, we're saying to Yamwe. In my place, we're saying Hulihalala. We're bringing Kenyans together, because for far too many years, as I finish woodwork, we've had political parties that are purely based on tribe. That we know the Kikuyu party, we know the Luo party, we know the Kalenjin party, we know the Kamba party, the Luya party. I think we had like 4 or 5, parties. But what was the Kenyan party? And then how do you create a political identity that it does not matter where you're from, you can actually then become president? And that is what we have been moving towards doing. If you guys believed in the same thing, I don't understand why Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, Musalia and Otangula then should be in different parties. If you believe in the same philosophy, if you have the same ideology, if you have the same thing for this country, why are you in different parties if it is not about power sharing?
Okay, that's a point made. I can see that you want to respond. I'll give you that opportunity after the break. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. What difference will the signing of NASA's power sharing arrangement make? Talk to us on SMS number 22422 or on Twitter using the hashtag Cheche. I see you looking at me.